you done now?
Okay, here we go again. Minute 34.
But Mr. Body threatened to give my wife's name to the House Un-American Activities Committee unless she named them. She refused, and so he blackmailed her. We had no money, and the price of his silence was that we worked for him for nothing. We were slaves. Well, to make a long story short, too late. The suicide of my wife preyed on my mind and created a sense of injustice in me. I resolved to put Mr. Body behind bars. It seemed to me the best way to do it, and to free all of you from the same burden of blackmail, was to get everyone face to face, confront Mr. Body with his crimes, and then turn him over to the police.
So, everything is explained.
Nothing's explained. We still don't know who killed him.
But the point is, we've got to find out in the next 39 minutes before the police arrive.
My God, we can't have them come here now.
But how can we possibly find out which of you did it?
What do you mean, which of you did it?
Well, I didn't do it.
Well, one of us did. We all had the opportunity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Clue the Movie Podcast, where we break down the 1985 cult classic film Clue 1 minute at a time. My name is Brad Gilmore, joined by Jeff Smith, General
Hello.
Jeff Smith. General, how are you?
Oh.
Yes.
I am an actual general, that's true. Just like Colonel Mustard is an actual colonel, I guess.
Yeah, sort of.
Would you want Colonel Mustard to be your colonel?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
I wouldn't want him to be my Uber driver. I would be afraid he'd get us lost.
He definitely would get you lost. I agree with that one, Jeff. Now, Jeff, you are emanating from the great city and state of Boston, Massachusetts. At the time that we're doing this, Boston just suffered a pretty massive loss in the basketball world. What is the vibe of the city currently?
Well, it's funny because I work currently in a movie theater, and the other night when the buzzer beater happened,
Yes.
I'm not what you would call a basketball fan.
Sure.
So I didn't even, and also I'm not originally from Massachusetts, so the Celtics mean absolutely nothing to me. That being said, I was probably the only person in that theater that felt that way. I didn't know the game was on, first of all. I didn't know they were still playing, but I knew that suddenly the theater I work at has a bar with TVs, and all the gentlemen that were there to watch The Little Mermaid with their families started to file out early and started gathering around the TVs. And I was very confused why there was so much activity that late, because it was pretty late on the East Coast, that the game, what was happening. And everyone was very excited. Last night, the Celtics did not win.
Right.
And I haven't been outside that much today, but it feels a little gloomy. I'll find out more tomorrow. Today, I just did all my prep for this show, because all the prep that we do before
A lot of prep.
Clue the Movie Podcast, where we actually almost did episode 33 again, just mere moments ago, ladies and gentlemen, because we forgot where we were. But yeah, I'm sure they're a little sad. There was a lot of green shirts. I noticed when I moved here, there were a lot of Bruins merchandise, a lot of hats and shirts, and a lot of Red Sox, but usually not, and Patriots. Not a lot of Celtics, but there certainly were the last couple days. But,
well, I'll tell you why. Because green's just a hard color to pull off every day.
It's true.
Like, you can't green every day. There
are a lot of Irish people here, so if anybody could do it, it'd be them.
Yes. After I watched The Departed last weekend, the first time in several years.
They're very proud of that movie, by the way, here. They love The Departed.
The Departed.
It's a perfect Boston title, too.
It is.
The only one that was better was when I worked at the theater and Cocaine Bear was out, because can I get two for Cocaine Bear?
Get Cocaine Bear. I can't really do a Boston accent, but I watched The Departed, and it made me want to travel to Boston less.
Oh, yeah, because you might get shot. It's true. Yeah. So that's the fun part about living here is that it was all shot. Most of it was shot really in Boston. So sometimes you'll turn a corner and go, oh my gosh, this is where they shot The Departed.
The Departed. Such a
or
great
Good Will
movie.
Hunting or Ted. Sometimes you'll run into places where Ted was shot.
why do you think that they have to get Boston actors to be in Boston-based movies? Is it only because of the accent? Because you have Mark Wahlberg.
Marky Mark and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and that's pretty much it. If there's a movie set in Boston, it's
Gotta have one or two of them.
actually one of them, at least one of them, has to be in it. Although 80 for Brady did not have any of them, so that was weird.
Okay. Well, minute 34 of Clue the movie begins with Wadsworth continuing the story regarding his wife's untimely demise at her own hands, and it ends with setting the with this. What was this called in Save the Cat Land? It's like setting the clock or putting a
the ticking clock.
Ticking clock. We kind of get a ticking clock here.
Says the police are on their way and they're going to be there in
39 minutes.
30, yeah.
Now we happen to know that's inaccurate.
Yeah, we still have. If anything, we know how many more episodes we have of this, and it's more than 39.
In the movie run 97 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
97 minutes. And
I'm trying to think, okay, you take away the credits, you take away the other endings, when the police actually, is it when the chief comes in as the evangelist? Maybe that's at the 39 minute
is it
mark.
when the actual cop gets there?
Oh, the cop that comes to save the day and doesn't. Ooh, maybe it is.
We need to keep
all my research I did today. I didn't.
Wait, we're on minute 34.
Yeah.
So plus
When does the cop
39.
show up?
That's minute 73. If my math's right?
Oh, the cops are he's there for sure before that.
He's there before the 73rd minute?
Yeah, but it could be Howard Hessman in his uncredited role.
Okay, we're going to see. So 73, everybody. Mark that on your board.
In 30 weeks, get ready because we'll get to that.
What stands out for you from this minute?
You know what? My favorite thing to watch now when I watch Clue, and I certainly was doing it while we were watching that clip, is Madeline Kahn as Mrs. White. In this particular scene, she is oddly sympathetic to Wadsworth. She's the one that brings the handkerchief when he's crying. And she just, the way she stares at him with her very sad eyes, she's nodding, she's really listening. She feels bad for him when Colonel Mustard, when he says, to make a long story short, Colonel Mustard says too late. She kind of gives him a dirty look. She gazes at him, at Colonel Mustard for a little bit, and then goes back to Wadsworth. So I don't know why Mrs. White is so sympathetic, but she certainly is. And I also like the cutaway. Oh, this is the previous minute. See, we did watch a little bit of the other minute, folks. When Wadsworth says he thought he'd put his information to good use to make a little money off it. What could be more American than that? And it cuts to Mrs. Peacock of all characters, who nods like, yeah, that's true.
It's
the politician's wife.
She does the kind of the head nod with the blinking of the eyes.
And just very dry, just kind of, very almost not involuntarily.
Exactly.
Agreed. Yeah, you're right. That's what we do.
Exactly. Now the Mrs. White being sympathetic, really, are there any other moments not that we've seen thus far? And I'm trying to think ahead. And are there any other moments where she shows this same sympathy? And why would she at this very moment? Because you would think, there's maybe a maternal instinct, but she's not a mother from what we are aware of.
Not that we know of, yeah.
So I wonder if that is a clue to some, because if you see somebody crying, I think the stereotypical male response is you okay? Right? That's about the extent of it. But bro, you all right, bro? Bro, everything all right? You all right?
Bro. Hey, bro.
Brother. Yeah, but I think that there's a certain instinct, like a maternal instinct in most women, maybe to console, but Mrs. Peacock nor Miss Scarlet, they don't make any kind of overtures or Yvette to console said Wadsworth. So I'm trying to figure out what about Wadsworth compelled Mrs. White to do such a thing.
I think Mrs. White is just, as we see throughout the movie, very emotional and has no control over her emotions. I think a lot of the reasons, or I think the reason she has committed all her crimes is based on passion. She hates Yvette so much that she can't even get the words out how much she hates Yvette. So she's just a ball of emotions, and I think she can overcome them after a while, because she's pretty cold when she talks about what happened to her ex-husbands.
Mm-hmm.
He just wasn't a very good illusionist. But
He wasn't.
for I think that moment, and then she's not, but she like screams later when Mustard and Wadsworth are having that back and forth about no there is or no there isn't someone else in the house, when she throws her champagne glass into the fireplace and yells please. She's just a ball of emotions.
She is
and we
a
just
ball.
got to see a nice one.
A very nice emotion. Now, here's where I want to go with this, because when you listen to Wadsworth's story, right? Now, in a past life, Jeff Smith, I was a speech teacher at a high school for a year. And one of the things we talked about when we got to persuasive speeches was the use of the 3 tools in order to have an effective persuasive argument, which is ethos, pathos, and logos, right? I'm sure.
Right,
I'm sure
exactly.
you're familiar.
Yeah. All right.
Give me that.
I mean, tell the audience, like, because I know all this.
So-
but for the sake of the audience,
So those are the
I have no
three.
idea what he's talking
Those
about.
are the 3 emotional appeals that we use when you're trying to make a persuasive argument. First off is ethos, which is ethics. You try to make an ethical appeal. They did something morally wrong that compelled you to act this way, or if you're a politician, you're thinking of some ethical issue. There might be a hot button issue in order to get an emotional response. A lot of the times, the example we'd use in class is Roe v. Wade, right? That was a very ethical dilemma that people have, and writing that in their mind, or if you for or against, that's a good way to make an argument because it's something that people can feel strongly about. The other one is logos, which is logic. I'm using logic to make my argument. A plus B equals C. You can follow it very clearly. I lay it out so where you cannot really deny the logic that I'm using to make my argument. The famous Johnny Cochran said, hey, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. That's logical. You said the murderer uses this glove. He came get the glove on his hand. Therefore, O.J. Simpson not the murderer. That's his logos appeal. And then finally, we use pathos, which is straight up an emotional appeal, a passionate appeal, tugging at people's heartstrings, like with the sad death of their wife. And I'm telling you this to convince you that I'm here for the right and just cause. I'm trying to avenge my wife. That's an emotional appeal, right? So those are the 3. And I feel like Wadsworth used a little bit of all of these in his soliloquy, as it were, for the reason not only his wife met her untimely demise, but why he got everyone together, right? And what his plan was. He kind of made, I feel, like somewhat of a convincing argument.
Well, he definitely takes all the attention off himself. We talked a couple episodes back on whether or not we even believe that he had a wife that took her own life. And I think, came to the conclusion, no, he's full of it. And I stand by that. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think he does use all that. It's funny when you're talking about how today people use those different methods to persuade. I think logos is probably the least one used now.
Yes.
It's all either ethics or emotion and very little logic. But, yeah, he does, because we've talked about, before we got to this scene, we've talked in the past about his plan makes no sense. Right. Why would they all assume to get there and this is all going to work out just the way he planned it? But he explains it so simply, and they never question him again. They just go, oh, that was what he was going to do. We're all going to get together, confront him, and then he let us all off the hook.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, hey, my wife was friends with socialists, so they were going to report Mr. Body find this out. He's going to report her to the House of Un-American Activities.
Right.
Okay.
Look how bad this is.
So that's bad. And then so instead of doing that, he blackmailed us to work for free and be his slaves.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, that is morally wrong to have someone do. There's his ethos approach. His pathos approach is my wife killed herself because of this. Therefore, this is my motivation. And then his logic is if we bring them all together, if we all confront him, maybe he will say, hey, there's strength against numbers. I'll stop blackmailing you, or we're going to report you to the authorities. So he hit all three of those things, which makes me think that he is a sociopath.
Yeah. And maybe a narcissist. Well, it's true because he kind of paints the picture that if you allow him to continue to blackmail you, you will all be out of money.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to work for him for free. And this is what can happen when you've had enough.
Yes.
So really the only logical thing to do is to get him to stop.
Get him to stop, man.
Or kill him, which somebody did.
Somebody did that. Who did that?
Maybe.
Well, maybe he did that, or
He might just be lying there taking a nap.
Now, for those inquiring minds wondering, after World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union found themselves on opposite sides of a quote-unquote Cold War, which pitted the democratic United States against the communist Soviet Union. As the war intensified, the frenzy over the perceived threat posed by communists in the United States became known as the Red Scare. The House of Un-American Activities Committee was created in 1938 to investigate alleged disloyalty and rebel activities on the part of private citizens, public employees, and organizations suspected of having communist ties. Citizens suspected of having ties to a communist party would be tried in a court of law. Also during this time, Senator Joseph McCarthy began a campaign against alleged communists in the United States government and other institutions. From 1950 to 1954, McCarthyism described the practice of accusing federal government employees of having affiliations with communism and leaking information. Government employees could be blacklisted, viewed as an untrustworthy or someone to avoid, and lose their jobs. The threat of communism was a driving force that created a wedge between society and the United States government. I have one more paragraph. During this time...
Oh, you're reading this?
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe it. Oh.
During this time...
Yes.
The lines of civil liberties and the national security began to blur, and United States citizens felt a sense of uncertainty. Some Americans felt that their personal freedoms were being taken away, while others believed that the House of Un-American Activities Committee and McCarthyism were necessary to secure national security. Government officials felt the same types of pressures on the home front. Were they overstepping government powers, or just keeping America safe from outsiders that wanted to cause harm within the system? What is more important, national security or personal freedom?
So it is political. You're a communist.
Yes, commie.
It is all about communism, obviously.
Communism right now is not a red herring as far as we know. As far as we know. It's not a red herring.
So the McCarthyism stopped in 1954? Is that what you said?
That's what it says on here. Now, we know this takes place in 55, right?
No, 54.
This takes place in 54. Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
you're Back to the Future.
I'm Back to the Future mind. 1954.
No, this is New England 54. Which is why we had that whole discussion about the Celtics, everybody. It was not a tangent. That's New England.
So if you're thinking about leaving a review, don't say that it was a tangent at this moment.
That review has already been written. You don't need to. We don't need to. We don't need to.
But
I like that review, by the way, though. I know it's supposed to be, it was a 1 star, but I like that review.
Yeah, we got a 1-star review on the podcast. And it was just because they said that we got off topic so much.
Yeah.
But if we always bring it back to Clue.
Right.
It's not off.
It's kind of like when we go off on a tangent, it feels so good when we come back to Clue, doesn't it? Like, it's like you can't have steak for dinner every night, everybody.
No.
Otherwise, you won't like your steak.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta have a long discussion about massages or
Or professional wrestling.
Or professional wrestling or Back to the Future. I mean, massage was new, but the other ones are pretty good go-tos.
Well, you know what?
You know they're coming.
Can I say something? Can I say something? Just the thought of having steak for dinner every night really makes me not happy. Just the thought.
No, doesn't it just... It makes your chest kind of hurt.
Makes me feel full.
Your throat kind of clog up.
It's not good. So this story now we know takes place at the end of McCarthyism.
Yeah.
But so it's not... I guess it wouldn't be the height of McCarthyism, right?
Well, if it's at the end, I'm guessing no.
All right.
In all my research today, I also forgot to
Look up
study
the height of McCarthyism.
Well, the reason McCarthyism is in Clue in the first place is just because, for whatever reason, Jonathan Lind, who is not American, most of his knowledge of American history, for whatever reason, I guess he was fascinated by it, is McCarthyism. He found that period very interesting, probably because it had so much to do with Hollywood, and he's a movie guy. Because that was the big thing during McCarthyism, was a lot of movie stars that had to go forward. I mean, famously Lucille Ball. I think even Walt Disney. Just they put everybody on front of that table and made them talk about guilty before being proven innocent. So I'm guessing that's probably why he was fascinated by it. But he knew that he wanted to make Clue not take place in 1985, and so that's the point in history he knew the best. Therefore, McCarthyism.
Well, I will say it's the perfect time period. The only thing that would be better is maybe during World War II. But I almost find this time period to be perfect because you still have that elegance of the late 30s and 40s in the early 50s. There's a certain elegance in this house, the way people are dressed. The idea of a dinner party seems somewhat passé nowadays. Like we're all going to go to this extravagant house to have a party dressed to the nines in.
It'd be ironic now.
Yeah, it's more of an ironic thing to do as opposed to something that was common practice at this time. But still,
obviously, they all just showed up. Can you imagine just getting an invitation? Hey, you don't know anybody here. It's signed a friend, but we're having a dinner party.
Right. Yeah, we're just showing up.
Yeah, I got nothing to do.
But also consider this. Like, okay, let's say it was set in World War II. Well, then the scare would be more would be Nazism.
Absolutely.
And German influence, but that's more of an issue that wasn't happening stateside as it was a war at the battlefront abroad, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that I think is actually really unique and smart by Jonathan Lind, really smart the more I'm thinking about it, of him choosing the 1950s is because the Red Scare is this superfluous, really non-existent to the level of what they thought it was. We just defeated the ultimate bad guy in Adolf Hitler. And now when you take that ultimate bad guy away, there's this void that needs to be filled by the American consciousness of who are we battling? Who are our enemies?
The boogeyman now.
Who's the boogeyman?
It could be our neighbor.
Could be our neighbor. So it actually makes complete sense for this to be the time period that Clue takes place because it's this, omnipresent enemy that's influencing everything, this communism. And you know what? It's actually really an interesting thing now that I'm looking at it, why this period was chosen.
Because it could be a politician, it could be a politician's wife, it could be a doctor, it could be a colonel in our own military, it could be
a madam.
Sure.
Who had a DC madam.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. And I don't mean to get into
a scientist's wife. Yeah.
Right. Who worked on the fusion bomb. And the madam makes sense too, because,
secrets,
not to use too current of events, but kind of the mystery around Jeffrey Epstein and who is this guy who's connected to all these powerful people, right? Who has all these secrets. That's kind of, I think, not to that extent, excuse me for bringing the man's name up, but that's kind of what Miss Scarlett's, I think, role is. You have all the dirt. You're the person who has the dirt, the dirty dirt.
Not only are just by knowing her are doing something technically wrong, but I mean, you hear stories that the servicemen in Vietnam or even in the Middle East who visited ladies of that occupation, a lot of them were secret spies and stuff that worked for the government. And so they would get information because they were getting soldiers when they were the most vulnerable. And I can totally see Colonel Mustard being that kind of client.
Well, on that note, visiting a house of ill fame. By the way, everyone,
most soldiers do.
I used that vernacular recently in conversation.
Oh, please. How did that go?
House of ill fame. I don't remember how, but I think that we were discussing. I can't remember. It was with an attorney friend of mine, and we were just talking about something. And I said, "Well, I'm sure he frequented a house of ill fame." And the attorney, this is a guy who's got degrees, man, lots of degrees, lots of experience, said, and I quote, "A what?" And I said,
"Perhaps protest too much."
I cleaned my glass. That was me polishing my glasses.
No, I'm just saying, perhaps I've never heard of that kind of house of ill what? And what did they do there? Oh, what?
What? A what?
I've never heard of such a thing.
A what?
Hey, for what?
A what?
This is ridiculous. Quip.
Well, I think this is a good place to put a button on this. Talking about house of ill fames for a minute.
Always when I walk away from a conversation. Always, as a rule.
As a rule. Minute 34 of Clue the Movie podcast. That's Jeff Smith. The doc is out. You can buy the doc. You can. Yeah. Can we stream the doc?
Streaming has been pushed back.
Okay. Just
a
making sure.
week. I would love. This is going to come out. I don't know when I can announce it. Okay, I'll just say this before we go. This is for you people that are aware of the Clue documentary. I'm going to throw out a little information at the very end just to reward you for listening to the whole thing. There is a distribution company, excuse me, that is tied to a movie news website. The movie news website is going to be the place where the announcement is made, where it's going to be streaming and when it's going to be streaming. And because I asked them, just like last week, I said, can I tell people now? We were talking about asking for permission on things when your art or whatever your projects are suddenly now owned by somebody else. You have to ask for permission to do things. When it used to be just, I would post whatever I want on social media. So now I have to ask them. And they said, no, the news has to appear on this website first, and then you can tell anybody you want. So I don't know when that's going to happen. I know that they said they're finalizing artwork, which is exciting and scary at the same time, because I don't know what they're doing with the artwork. Mm-hmm. It could be great. It'll be great.
It will be.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
It'll be good.
So if you haven't heard when it's streaming yet, hopefully it'll be soon. Because it's not that far off from here. So they're going to have to start telling people eventually.
Yeah. So it's coming soon.
It'll still be warm. I'll say that.
You know what we should do? We should write a book about Clue. Oh, wait a minute. They already did that.
Somebody's done it, John Hatch.
John Hatch. What up, John? We got to get John back on the show.
Yeah, people like John Hatch. They like him more than us.
Well, I do too.
I do too. Oh, yeah. Well, I hate myself. I like you, Brett Gilmore.
Well, I like you, Jeff Smith. And
I wish I lived in Houston so I could watch you on CW39.
Yes. If you are in the Houston area, you can watch me on CW39 talking about movies and TV with your favorite movies and TV people.
I know when I heard you had that gig, I thought, oh, is now Brad Gilmore going to be too big for Clue the Movie podcast? And the day I thought that, you texted me and said, this is your favorite podcast to do.
This is my favorite
Booker
podcast.
T.
Sorry, Book. Book knows. I just like this because I like it. I like you, Jeff.
Yeah, that's all you have to say.
A lot of light going on. A lot of love going on.
Yeah.
But you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna stop it here, and we're gonna go to minute 35.
Yes. Continue the love.
And continue this love fest of Clue the Movie podcast.
It's gonna start right here where this love is. So imagine where it's gonna go. We took 20 whatever minutes to build to this, and we're gonna start here.
Hey, I have a little nugget for you. It's been 30 minutes.
Wow, this is the longest one, I think.
And I think we had one with John Hatch. It was almost an hour. It was like 50 minutes, like 47 minutes or something like that.
Oh my!
It's close. But this is a long one. And guess what? This is the end of this one. And then we're going to pick up with the next one. Minute 35 of Clue the Movie podcast coming next week. See you everywhere.